I got one here. I think we should take Craig in Ohio, he, him. And he says his experience led him to believe that the Christian God was real, starting with prayer.
Okay.
So, hi, Craig. How you doing?
Good. How about you guys?
Good.
Good.
So, what experience made you believe that the Christian God was the real God?
Well, first off, I wasn't raised in the church, I mean, long story short, I got in trouble, and I was actually a troublemaker. I was unruly child. Was raised without a mom, so it was just 3 men in a house, me and my brother and my dad. And me and my dad, kind of always went back and forth, but I always loved my dad, even though he mistreated us in some ways, but we deserved it because things that we did, and I didn't understand that.
Children never deserve to be mistreated. Don't tell yourself that.
Right.
Children never deserve to be mistreated. Well, nothing. They don't. They just don't. Period. You can communicate. You can communicate things to a child without abusing them or hitting them or anything. I raised 2 kids without hitting them. They turned out to be wonderful individuals. So you don't need to mistreat children.
Yes. And,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop you on that, but that cuts deep.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Cool.
You're good. And but anyways, I was unruly, and I tend to do things on my own way. And I got in trouble my senior year. I was pretty good in wrestling. And I had a lot of, aspirations going into my senior year. I was 1 match away from going to state. And during that time, Ohio was a pretty tough state to wrestle in. And
but let's stick to the God thing, though. Let's go back to your God experience.
Yeah. I'm getting to that. Yes.
Okay.
And well, anyways, I got in trouble and got locked up and went to a juvenile prison. And I was ashamed for what I did. And I even wrote the judge, asked him if I can get out, early. And he denied my request. And I was hurt, ashamed, and I had nothing left. I just was empty, and couldn't get out. And but anyways, there was this. We were watching a movie, and there was this old guy, and I would talk to the guys like, man, somebody could beat that guy up, and he was a JCO, juvenile correctional officer, and they're like, no, you don't touch that, man. That guy could do crazy things. And I was like, what kind of crazy things? And they're like, go talk to him. And so I went up and I went to go talk to him, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I heard you can do crazy things. And I didn't know what kind of crazy things. I'm thinking some kind of magic trick or something, not even the things of God, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. And he came, he's like, what room are you in? And I pointed over, he's like, I'll be over there later on. And I was like, okay. And this whole time I sat there, it was probably a good hour or so. And he came to my door, and he looked at me, and he goes, can I pray for you? And I looked at him, and I kind of felt let down. I was like, man, that's it? That's what you can do? I didn't tell him that. That's just what I was saying to myself, quietly, in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I looked at him, I was like, sure. It's like a prayer couldn't hurt, could it? And he looked at me and he goes, do you believe Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross and died for our sins?
Okay, just let's move forward, because we all know the spiel. We don't need to go through the whole spiel.
But that, that's okay. But anyways, so when I answered that question, I did not know the things about Jesus Christ, and so with me not knowing anything about Jesus, I just knew his name, is what I'm saying. I wasn't seeking for evidence. I wasn't seeking for proof of God's existence. I wasn't seeking none of that. I was seeking for help. I was looking for something. I was looking for something to help me out, during this time, and a prayer, and when he, and so when you cut me off, he kind of threw me off, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm trying to rebound from that. And so he had my roommate stand behind me, and my roommate stood behind me, and when I accepted this and believed in this, he told me, I don't want you to pray for what you're in here for you have beaten yourself up enough. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? That's what I said to myself. Like, how does he know? And so as I'm praying, I prayed for something else. And I prayed for my mom. And she had 20 or more cysts and tumors on her kidneys and liver. And so I prayed for that. I just talked to my mom recently, the past day or so, and I got the news that she was going to get a biopsy done to see if the tumors were cancerous or the cysts were cancerous or not. So I prayed for that. That's what I prayed for.
Mm-hmm.
And when he prayed for me, I did not hear him pray for me. And I was praying in my own mind, in my own body. And I heard something say to me, let me have it. That's what I heard in myself. Let me have it. And I said, have what? And then my heart beat it out of my chest. And I said, okay. And then I fell backwards. And when I woke up, or when I got up, I couldn't see anything. I see nothing but white. And I wandered around, and I'm not making this up, man.
I believe you had an experience.
I felt good.
Me too. Yeah, you had an experience.
I felt good. I felt really good, and almost as if I wasn't in jail anymore. That's how good I felt. And anyways, I went to the bed, my roommate's bunk bed, because I was on the top bunk. And I sat down on his bed, and I'm like thinking to myself, what the heck just happened to me? Then when I could see again, I went to the door and started banging on the door, and he was walking away. And I asked him, what did you do to me? Hey, what did you do to me? And he looked back and smiled at me and kept on walking, and we never spoke again. But, I've had some other experiences in my life where God has actually spoken to me, as if he was standing there, and I can remember exactly what he said to me. And I was cursing at people when I was playing video games, threatening people, and doing all these things because God allowed me to do what I wanted to do. And he asked me, why are you being this way, for I did not create you to be this way? Or what are you doing, for I did not create you to be this way? And then he asked me the other time, he spoke to
Craig,
me.
can I stop you for a second? Can I stop you for a second? Because you've said a whole bunch of stuff, but you still haven't gotten to what you called about. So I'm wondering if maybe we can go back to that subject matter. Can you tell me how what it was that actually made you believe that the Christian God was real? Like you've told us about all these experiences you've had, but what is it that actually you said, wow, this God is real? Is it because he answered a prayer, or what?
Well, for one, the next day, and I don't know if it was the next day or not, but the next time I talked to my mom, she had no cysts or no tumors on her kidneys or livers. And I thank God for that. She was clean. None of them are cancerous. Let me say.
That's good to hear.
And the other thing is when somebody prayed for me like that, I've never felt that in my life. I never felt like that, back into somebody's arms and somebody caught me. And I never seen a light like that, even though I was opening my eyes and rubbing my eyes, thinking and I still couldn't see, you know,
those things are those things are used by a lot of counselors and stuff. Those aren't necessarily like Christian things, right?
Right.
You are aware of that, correct? Right? Like the falling backwards thing, that's used by a lot of counselors and stuff. That's not really a Christian thing.
And if I may,
counselors are not preaching the word of God either.
That's not what I said. I think my point that I was making just went right over your head. Chris, what were you going to say?
Here's the deal. I want to ask, first of all, there's a couple of points I'd like to make. One is, which is more likely, Craig? Which is more likely? You experience some sort of chemical release in your brain, possibly a mini stroke or a mini hallucination of some kind, or, work with me here, or which is most likely, that happened. You had some sort of something go wrong in your brain, or the almighty creator of the entire universe chose to speak to you. And I want to tell you, Craig, that if you're familiar with the Bible and this stuff like that sort of thing, I want to tell you before you answer, the almighty God, creator of everybody, didn't speak to Mary. He spoke through an angel. Didn't speak to Muhammad. They spoke through an angel. So you, Craig, are more closer to God than those people. That's kind of where you're going when you're telling me that God did these things for you. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious how you feel about that.
Well, what does John 10:27 say?
I don't know. What does John 3:17 say?
Not sure.
Yeah, I suspect. And see, that's the whole deal. You have a belief that you're not really even sure of. You've allowed somebody to let you believe something or help you believe something. Maybe you helped yourself believe it. I'm not really sure, but I want to go with the Occam's razor in your case. First of all, I'd like to point out that you need to believe more in yourself. I just say that based on what you were saying when you opened up the thing and you're like, I was a bad kid and I deserved it. I was like, man, I want to hug you, dude. I want to hug you. That's what I was thinking. But I've made a couple of notes. First of all, when you were down and you were in need and your life had been kind of rough and you were feeling like you were in a place of need, that's when that's a point when people of religion tend to prey on people. That's literally what they go for. They look for people who are in need and try to sway them because they know you're at your lowest and you're easy to convince. Now, I don't know. I can't really speak to your mother and your.
Oh God.
I can't speak to your mother and the things that medically happened with your mother. We can go again with Occam's razor, which is more likely there was some sort of medical misdiagnosis or a technician read it wrong or some of that business. Or once again, my friend, the almighty God who created everything loves you so much. You, Craig, you so much that he answered your prayers. He didn't answer what was his name? Rush Limbaugh's prayers when he had lung cancer, and all those Christians out there were praying for Rush Limbaugh. And yet he held your mother. You know, my dad died of lung cancer, which had spread to his brain, and we saw the little things in his brain. And praying didn't help. He was a Christian.
Well,
our prayers didn't help. So explain to me, if you will.
Well, I do know this, and your name's Chris, right? Your name's Chris, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chris Mallard. I'm the host of the Daily Atheist Morning Show.
I do know God works in mysterious ways. You know,
he does.
Yeah, he sure does. He sure does. Jesus. He sure does. They are so mysterious. They are so mysterious that we can't even prove he did it.
It's almost as if he didn't exist.
Almost. It's amazing.
It's crazy. Pardon, Craig. Carry on with your rebuttal.
You know,
we hear that excuse all the time. We hear that excuse
really do. I'm sorry, Kelley. We really do. We hear it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that like God works in mysterious ways, and that's usually what people resort to when they have no other answer.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to explain myself when I tell them that God spoke to me. They're like, well, what did he sound like? What, was it in your head? Was it, and I had to explain to them that, no, it's not in my head, because John 10:27 explains to you, my sheep hear my voice, and and I know them, and they follow me.
And they follow me.
You know,
See,
and
I get that.
you know, and I thank you guys for letting me talk. You know, and like I said, I'm not a liar, and God did not create me to be a liar. You know, and I'm just here. I'm not here to convince anybody that, or convict anybody, but I will tell you, God is real, and, I don't want anybody to perish. And I know many think that God is cruel. He's not cruel. We have choices. Some people.
Do you think that drowning like every baby in the world wasn't cruel? I mean, that seems pretty damn cruel to me.
That's cool. They must have deserved it. Surely they deserved it, right?
Do you think that allowing babies to starve to death today is?
How long? That was 120 years that Noah took Noah to build the ark, right?
I don't know that it took 120 years. If that's what it claims in the Bible, okay, I'll accept it for the sake of conversation.
I think it was 120 years that it took Noah to build the ark, if I'm not mistaken. And Noah warned the people. How many people listened to Noah? How many people listened to that?
How many? Hey, you know what, Craig? How many children starve to death today that God could keep from starving to death today? Let's forget the babies that got drowned because their parents didn't listen. God decided to kill them anyway. It wasn't their fault. They didn't have the capacity to listen. They were freaking babies. But how many babies does God let die today just because they don't have food?
If I was Joel Osteen, I would empty out my pockets immediately and give out all the money that I had to all.
It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with money because Jesus supposedly made loaves and fishes out of nothing. God could just feed those kids. It has nothing to do with money. God doesn't need money.
The world is ran by money.
You know what? I have a $5 bill that's been sitting on my shelf here for over 6 months. And on the back of it, it says, "Dear Jesus, please come and take this $5 bill so you can help feed the poor with it." And it's still sitting on my shelf 6 months later. Jesus still hasn't come and picked it up.
And one of the, if the world is run by money, that's great. I can give you that. But isn't Jesus supposed to be bigger than that? You're saying he's limited by money. He doesn't have money. He can't just present money. He can't just, yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
No, but people are putting in tithes and offerings for this. And me and my wife are very, we go at it back and forth about this whole tithes and offerings thing. I'm like, well, instead of putting 10% of money in, why don't you go give them 10% of goods, like cans of corn, meat or something like that, and go give that to a pastor and tell them to go give that to the poor. Me and my wife literally talk about that. And, here's
the thing, Craig. Here's the thing. You keep talking about what you can do or what a human being can do. We're talking about what God can do. God could stop this. He doesn't need you and your wife to save a can of corn. God can do this all without that can of corn. This is the point that we've been Chris and I've been trying to make, and it doesn't seem like you're understanding our point. God doesn't need you to stop these children from starving to death. He can do it all on his own.
Well, they're not the only ones starving. They're not the only ones being slaughtered either.
Dude, are you even listening to what we're saying at all?
One of the things,
it doesn't
Craig,
seem like you are. I'm baffled.
If you will, Craig, if you go look in the Old Testament, and I actually have a video series on this, you can go watch it. It's called The Evil God Monster of Abraham. And look at the God of the Old Testament. It's a horrific, evil monster. It kills. It commands people to kill. It's just horrible throughout the thing. And what you're going to get is the results and activities and actions of people who follow that kind of book. And sorry, did I lose it there?
No, you're good.
Okay, we're still good. All right. So I am losing it. Sorry. Sorry, guys. I lost what I was talking about. Craig, I was vanquishing you for something. There you are.
You guys were just questioning me about the whole the whole flood
Thank
thing. You know, when in fact
Yes.
that Noah did warn the people for 120 years, correct?
But the babies couldn't do anything.
Yes or no?
Like it's Craig, you missed the
Okay,
point of bringing that up. Is
Yeah.
that there were babies and
Okay,
the
but what
babies
does
couldn't do anything.
What does the Bible say about
Craig, you're missing. I'm trying to explain the point because you missed it. Okay. The point is the babies couldn't do anything. The babies couldn't save their lives. And yet God killed them anyway. They were innocent babies that had done nothing wrong. And yet God felt that it was all right to kill those babies, even though they had done nothing wrong and could not escape the flood. Do you now understand why that was a cruel act?
Anyways, I guess you
That's a
can.
no.
No, it's not in any ways. Do you understand? Do you understand why that is a cruel act?
What about leading your children? What about leading your children?
Craig, it's an easy question. Okay. God drowned a bunch of innocent babies who could not escape the flood. Do you or do you not think that was a cruel act?
Hey, Kelley, I'm going to leave it at this, and I'm going to hang up. One day you're going to get a caller who's going to baffle you, okay? And he's going to
well, it certainly hasn't been you,
Won't be
Craig.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Craig.